in, but like what we used to worry about in the UK was we got streaming deal for for soccer, football. That one took some lookup, and it wasn't order one. So everyone, at that point, everyone's watching these games on YouTube or on our streaming service, and so we just hadn't built enough capacity for it. So there's just different types of network have different times where it is. Usually, internet traffic is kind of diurnal, so you end up with like a spike at some point, and then two spikes a day, basically. Business traffic tends to offset, so you can do tricks like how much of the network do I build based on these different customers, and sort of overlay the two to get the best utilization out of the network. But it's fairly common that we're dropping packets. Even just spikes of traffic make it happen. There's some statistic where I've looked, we have a counter for all the traffic we're dropping in Google, and that is more traffic than some networks I've worked on. I can't give you what the numbers are, but you would be surprised how many packets Google isn't carrying that we maybe could. Sure. Yes, so essentially when I'm talking about that, it's internal business. It might be an internal business decision. So when I was at British Telecom, for example, we'd have business customers and consumer customers. But that said, well, all internet traffic is the same because it's based on the customer, right? It doesn't matter who's sending the packet; it's to do with them. But the net neutrality discussion is about, well, if I have ways to be able to classify traffic internally to my network, how do I choose to drop them? And one thing you could say is, well, if someone comes along and pays me more, then I'll carry their traffic. And so you have to pay me. Now, that has implications. So it has implications for how the internet's work. Like, if Netflix had got charged, or YouTube had got charged for every time that it tried to do these startups would never have produced a service because they would never have been able to afford to have a decent quality service. And so it's extremely intertwined between the how to classify packets and then the commercial negotiations around them that then has these regulatory implications. I think my observation is telcos the people that provide broadband networks, like to be, say, oh, it's really hard, right? We have to carry all this traffic. People keep sending all this traffic. But what are your customers doing? They're buying an internet connection so they can get all that traffic. So your commercial model should probably work. Like your product is being sold based on the fact that there is like YouTube or those kind of things available. So the whole practice is an interesting discussion about who's perceived to be taking the value out of out of internet connectivity, and the classification really is the technical means by which you could do that, which honestly is a footnote on a footnote of the whole discussion. Hi.
So I get that like adding complexity, but you decrease like throughput. But I was wondering if there's things like DDoS protection built into the network for like if someone tries to DDoS like somewhere in Google, do they like send messages back to like cut off the DDoS?
Yeah, so essentially you end up with, in most networks that see this, which is essentially every network these days, some mechanism by which you mitigate those DDoS attacks. So you have an attack, and there's it's the similar thing to this queuing thing, right? We have to be able to classify it. Let's say, what is the DDoS attack? What does it look like? And then we have to be able to, then we want to be able to say, well, where can we drop that? And now the ideal is you drop it outside of your network. Maybe not possible. Some places you can kind of ask an upstream provider, so signal to them, hey, I don't actually want traffic to this destination address. But in that case, you're saying per destination address, so you've kept the lookup complexity just on the destination address. Then maybe at the edge of your network, you say, okay, well, same thing, I could make the same destination-based thing. Maybe I could do a simple port-based one. Like if you're trying to DDoS something in Google and you're sending just a port, same destination IP and a single port, well, we can probably filter that in the complexity of the routers. But above that, we need something that can look into the body of the packet to be able to do more classification. And so in that case, it tends to be that you have we call them scrubbing services or mitigation services, where you say, well, any traffic that's going to somewhere that is getting DDoSed, like DDoSed, redirect it to some other service that is more capable of being able to look into the packet, and probably do that in a parallel way, because I think that, the numbers these days for these kind of attacks are mind-blowingly astronomical. And so that's then how you end up with that mitigation. Now, at the end of the day, like if you send more traffic than there is input capacity, there's not much we can do, because you've already dropped the packet on the other side of the link before you could even do anything with it. And so that's part of the capacity planning process. Sometimes you're already trying to build these networks to be reliable. So if we want 100 gigabit of capacity into another network, well, we're definitely building 200 gigabits, because all kinds of things could fail on those links. So we've got some bulk there, but at some point you essentially run out. You potentially run out of capacity, and that's one of the challenges about dealing with attack traffic like that, is to be able to say, well, how much capacity do I want to build ahead of time, increasing my cost, the cost of my network, increasing the number of things I have to manage, to be able to absorb something that might rarely happen. And when you see somebody get kind of knocked offline through this, it's generally because they ran out of either scrubbing capacity or they ran out of link capacity into the network. It's actually quite an involved set of interactions between networks to figure out how to help mitigate those kind of scenarios.
We're actually at time, so if anyone has any follow-up questions, you can post them on the end thread and we'll pass them along to Rob. But with that, a big thank you to Rob.
Thank you very much.